Have you ever felt invisible while standing right in front of someone?
That's exactly how Jessica Martinez felt every single day at work. The moment she walked through those office doors, something inside her just disappeared. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, and today I want to share with you a story that might sound all too familiar. It's about what happens when brilliance gets overshadowed, when hard work gets stolen, when your reality becomes someone else's illusion. Jessica was 32 years old, a graphic designer at a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. For 5 years, she'd poured her heart into that job. She loved creating campaigns that made people feel something, that moved them. But over the past 18 months, something had shifted. Something dark had crept into her professional life. And it had a name: Brandon Cole. He joined the team as a senior creative director, charming, confident, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and own it within seconds. Everyone loved him at first, including Jessica. But then she started to notice things. Little things. The way he'd take credit for her ideas in meetings, how he'd interrupt her mid-sentence, then repeat exactly what she'd just said as if it were his own brilliance. The subtle put-downs disguised as jokes, the way he'd smile while making her feel small. At first, she thought she was being sensitive, maybe even paranoid. But here's what she didn't know yet, what she couldn't see. Brandon wasn't just difficult. He exhibited classic narcissistic personality in the workplace. And those traits were about to unravel everything Jessica had worked so hard to build. The real trouble started on a Tuesday morning. Jessica had spent weeks developing a campaign for their biggest client. Sleepless nights, endless revisions. She'd finally cracked it. The concept was fresh, emotional, and exactly what the client needed. She presented it in the team meeting. She could see the excitement in everyone's eyes, the nods of approval. Even the senior partners seemed impressed. Then Brandon spoke.
"I love where Jess is going with this," he said, leaning back in his chair with that signature smile. "Actually, I mentioned this exact approach to her last week. Great execution, Jess. Really brought my vision to life." Jessica's stomach dropped. Her vision blurred. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Around the table, people were already nodding, already believing him, already forgetting that just seconds ago, they'd heard her present her own work. She sat there frozen, her hands trembling under the table. Nobody noticed. But wait, that wasn't even the worst part. After the meeting, Brandon pulled her aside in the hallway. His voice was smooth, almost kind. "Hey, I hope you're not upset about what I said in there. I just thought it would help the idea land better if it came from someone with more experience. You understand, right? I'm just looking out for you." Jessica nodded. She didn't know what else to do. That night, she barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the scene, his words, the way everyone had just accepted his version of reality. She felt like she was losing her grip on what was real. This is what experts call gaslighting, a manipulation tactic where someone makes you question your own memory and perception. And it's one of the most devastating tools in a narcissist's arsenal. Over the next few months, the pattern escalated. Brandon would assign Jessica impossible deadlines, then criticize her when she couldn't meet them. He'd exclude her from important meetings, then act surprised when she didn't have the information she needed. He'd compliment her work in private, then dismiss it in front of others. And the thing about narcissist behavior, it's calculated, strategic. Brandon knew exactly what he was doing. He was building himself up by tearing her down,
using her competence to fuel his own image, while simultaneously making sure she never outshone him. Jessica started having panic attacks before work. Her hands would shake during meetings. She'd rehearse simple sentences in her head before speaking, terrified she'd say something wrong, something he could use against her. Her friends noticed the change. They'd say, "You seem different. Is everything okay?"
But how could she explain? How could she make them understand that she was being systematically erased at her own job? She felt crazy, weak, dramatic. But here's the truth. She wasn't any of those things. Then came the breaking point. Jessica had designed a logo for a major retail client. It was the best work of her career. Clean, memorable, perfect. The client loved it. They specifically requested more work from that talented designer. The next day, Jessica walked past the conference room. Through the glass walls, she could see Brandon presenting her logo to the senior partners, to the client, without her. Her name wasn't on a single slide. Something inside her snapped. She walked straight to HR. Her voice shook as she explained everything. The credit stealing, the manipulation, the constant undermining. She had documentation, emails, timestamps on her design files, proof. The HR manager listened, took notes, and promised to investigate. 2 weeks later, Jessica got her answer. Brandon received a verbal warning. That was it. A conversation behind closed doors, no real consequences, no acknowledgement of the damage he caused. The company couldn't afford to lose him, they said. He brought in too much revenue, generated too many client relationships. Jessica felt the walls closing in. But then, something unexpected happened. She was scrolling through her phone late one night when she came across an article recognizing narcissistic personality traits in the workplace. She started reading, and suddenly, everything made sense. The grandiose sense of self-importance, the need for constant admiration, the lack of empathy, the exploitation of others, the sense of entitlement. It was all there, black and white. Not just her imagination, not her fault. For the first time in months, Jessica felt something other than confusion. She felt validation. If this story is making you think about your own workplace, hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear this, because awareness is the first step toward change. She started researching, reading everything she could find. She learned about boundary setting, about the gray rock method, about documentation strategies, about how to protect yourself emotionally when you can't remove yourself physically from the situation. And she learned something else too, something that changed everything. She learned that healing wasn't about making Brandon see what he'd done. It wasn't about getting an apology or forcing him to change. Narcissists rarely do. Their self-image is too fragile, too dependent on seeing themselves as superior. Healing was about Jessica reclaiming her own narrative. She started setting boundaries, small ones at first. When Brandon would try to take credit, she'd speak up, calmly, professionally. Actually, that was my concept. I'd be happy to walk you through my process. She stopped staying late to fix his mistakes, stopped making herself available at all hours, stopped caring what he thought of her. She documented everything, every email, every meeting, every instance of his behavior, not because she planned to use it immediately, but because having that record made her feel less powerless. And slowly, something shifted. Jessica started to feel like herself again. Not completely, not overnight, but bit by bit, she was finding her footing.
She also started working with a therapist, someone who specialized in workplace trauma and narcissistic abuse, someone who could help her process what she'd experienced without minimizing it or telling her to just let it go. Because here's what people don't understand about narcissistic relationships in any context. The damage isn't just about the specific incidents. It's about the erosion of your sense of self, the constant questioning of your reality, the way you start to see yourself through their distorted lens. Dr. Carter here, and I want to pause for a moment and talk about what Jessica was experiencing from a clinical perspective. When we encounter someone with strong narcissistic traits in the workplace, we're dealing with a pattern of behavior rooted in deep insecurity, masked by grandiosity. These individuals genuinely believe they're superior, but that belief is incredibly fragile. Any challenge to it feels like a threat to their entire identity.
They engage in what we call narcissistic supply. They need constant validation, admiration, and proof of their superiority. And they'll get it by any means necessary, taking credit for others' work, manipulating situations, creating environments where they're always the star. For the people around them, this creates a form of chronic stress. You're constantly on edge, never knowing when you'll be undermined or criticized. Your nervous system stays activated. Fight or flight becomes your default mode. Over time, this can lead to anxiety, depression, and even symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress. It's not dramatic to say that. It's clinical reality. The key to recovery involves several crucial steps. First, validation. Understanding that what you experienced was real, that your reactions were normal responses to abnormal behavior. Second, boundary setting. Learning to protect yourself emotionally and professionally. This doesn't mean being cold or uncooperative. It means being clear about what you will and won't accept. Third, support. Whether that's therapy, trusted colleagues, or friends outside work who can offer perspective. And fourth, rebuilding your sense of self. Remembering who you were before this experience. Reconnecting with your values, your strength, your worth. For those of you watching, here's what I want you to know. If you're dealing with a narcissistic coworker, boss, or even employee, you're not alone. This is more common than you think, and it's not your fault. You didn't cause it, you can't fix them, but you can protect yourself. Jessica's story didn't end with a perfect resolution. She's still at that company. Brandon is still there too. But something fundamental has changed. She no longer needs his approval. She no longer questions her own competence. She knows what she's dealing with, and that knowledge is power. She started building relationships with other colleagues, creating her own support network, making herself visible in ways that don't depend on Brandon's permission or validation. She's also begun looking at other opportunities, not running away, not admitting defeat, but recognizing that sometimes the healthiest choice is to move towards something better rather than away from something toxic. Because here's the thing about narcissists in the workplace. They thrive in environments that enable them. Companies that prioritize revenue over culture. Managers who look the other way. Systems that don't hold people accountable for their behavior, only their numbers. Jessica can't change that system alone, but she can change how she operates within it. And she can make choices that honor her well-being.
3 months ago, Jessica did something she never thought she'd do. She presented directly to the CEO. Not through Brandon, not with his permission. She'd built relationships, proven her worth, created her own path. And the CEO was impressed, really impressed. He asked why he hadn't heard her name more often, why she wasn't more visible in client presentations. Jessica smiled. "That's an excellent question," she said. That moment, that small act of self-advocacy, it didn't solve everything, but it cracked something open, a door, a possibility. Brandon noticed the shift. He tried to regain control. More criticism, more undermining. But this time, Jessica didn't absorb it. She observed it, she documented it, and she kept moving forward. Because that's the thing about healing from narcissistic abuse. It's not linear. There are setbacks, moments of doubt, times when you question if you're overreacting or being unfair. But if you keep showing up for yourself, if you keep honoring your reality, if you keep setting those boundaries, then slowly, imperceptibly, you reclaim what was taken. Your voice, your confidence, your truth. Last week, Jessica received a job offer, a creative director position at a different firm. Better pay, better culture, people who actually valued collaboration over competition. She hasn't decided yet. Part of her wants to stay and prove something. Part of her wants to leave and start fresh. But here's what she knows now. Either choice is hers, not Brandon's, not her fears, not the company's. Hers. And that realization, that quiet, powerful knowledge that she gets to choose her own path, that's the real victory. Want to hear more stories like this? Hit that subscribe button. Because these conversations matter. These experiences matter. And your healing matters. So let me ask you something. Have you ever dealt with a narcissist at work? What did you learn? What would you tell someone going through it right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your story if you're comfortable. Because sometimes knowing you're not alone is the most powerful medicine there is. Jessica's story isn't over. And if you're living a similar story, neither is yours. There's a way through this. There's healing on the other side. It might not look like you imagined. It might not come with a perfect ending or a satisfying confrontation. But it's real. It's possible. And you deserve it. Remember, real strength doesn't mean tolerating abuse. It means recognizing when something isn't serving you and having the courage to choose differently. You are not crazy, you are not weak, you are not dramatic. You are a person dealing with a genuinely difficult situation, and you have every right to protect yourself, to set boundaries, to seek support, to leave if that's what's best for you. The narcissist in your life won't give you permission to do those things. They won't validate your experience or apologize for their behavior. But you don't need them to. You never did. You just need to believe in yourself, to trust your own perception, to honor your own worth. And when you do that, when you really, truly do that, everything changes. Not overnight, not easily, but inevitably. Here's what Jessica told me in our last session. Something I'll never forget. She said, I used to think healing meant getting Brandon to admit what he did, to see me as valuable, to treat me with respect. But I finally understand. Healing is when his opinion of me becomes irrelevant, when I know my worth regardless of whether he acknowledges it. That's the shift. That's the breakthrough. When you stop waiting for validation from someone who will never give it, when you stop making yourself smaller so they can feel bigger, when you stop believing their distorted version of who you are, that's when you're free. Jessica still has hard days, moments when Brandon's words echo in her head, times when she doubts herself despite everything she's learned. But now she has tools, support, understanding, and most importantly, she has herself back. That's what this journey is really about. Not revenge, not justice, not even confrontation. It's about coming home to yourself, to the person you were before someone tried to dim your light, to the truth you knew before someone else's lies became louder. You can get there. You will get there.
One boundary at a time, one truth at a time, one courageous choice at a time. And when you do, you'll look back and realize something incredible. That person who tried to break you, who tried to steal your shine, who tried to make you believe you were less than you are, they didn't succeed. They couldn't, because the truth about you was always stronger than their lies. Jessica learned that, and now she's teaching it to others, mentoring younger designers, speaking up in meetings, creating a different kind of culture, one conversation at a time. She's not waiting for the company to fix the problem. She's becoming part of the solution. That's real power. That's real change. So here's my challenge to you. If you're dealing with a narcissistic coworker right now, what's one boundary you can set this week? One way you can honor your own truth? One small act of self-advocacy? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be yours. Because that's how change happens. Not in sweeping gestures or perfect confrontations, but in small, consistent choices to value yourself, to protect yourself, to believe yourself. You've got this. I know you do. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are people who understand, professionals who can help, communities who will support you. Reach out, ask for help. Don't try to do this alone. Because you deserve better than what that narcissist is offering. You deserve respect, acknowledgement, truth. And if you're not getting it there, then maybe it's time to find it somewhere else. Jessica did, and her life is so much richer for it. Yours can be too. Until next time, take care of yourself, honor your truth, and never let anyone make you doubt your own worth. You matter. Your experience matters. Your healing matters. Dr. Emily Carter, signing off.